Is that the audio that's going on? John? Good afternoon and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center. I'm Darrell Nail. Appreciate you joining us. We're here ahead of the launch of NASA's Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe, or IMAP, targeted for 7:32 a.m. Eastern, a launch that is, on Tuesday, September 23rd, on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Pad 39A. IMAP will study how the sun shapes the space around us with 2 rideshare missions on board. NASA's Carruthers Geocorona Observatory, imaging Earth's outer atmosphere, and NOAA's SWIFO-L1, providing early warnings of solar storms. Together, these missions will strengthen our understanding of space weather and its effects on Earth and our explorers. And to talk about that and answer your questions for the media today, joining me here is a fine panel of folks, starting with Dr. Nikki Fox, our Associate Administrator for Science Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters. To her left, Brad Williams, IMAP Program Executive, also at NASA headquarters. We have Irene Parker, Deputy Assistant Administrator with NOAA NESDIS. Dr. Denton Gibson, Launch Director for NASA Launch Services Program. Juliana Scheiman is the Director for NASA Science Missions at SpaceX. And Arlena Moses, our Launch Weather Officer for today and the launch from the U.S. Space Force. Now, today's briefing will focus on the mission readiness and the launch. Questions about the scientific details will be answered at another press conference coming up at 3:45 p.m. Eastern, and will feature mission science teams from NASA, NOAA, Princeton University, and the University of Illinois. So we'll begin with remarks from our panelists and then take your questions here in the room and on the phone line. So Dr. Fox, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you so much, Darrell. Thank you for joining us for this very, very exciting run-up to this incredible mission launch. The Apollo era certainly taught us that the further humanity is from Earth, the more dependent we are on science to protect and to sustain life on other planets. And we certainly learned that in between the Apollo 16 and 17 missions, when the astronauts narrowly missed catastrophe when one of the most powerful radiation storms recorded since the Carrington event of 1859 occurred in August of 1972. Had the astronauts been in orbit, or in fact on the moon's surface, they could have experienced dangerous levels of high radiation sparked by the historically enormous solar flares bursting from the sun at unprecedented speeds. I'll say, if you haven't seen it, it's called the Seahorse Flare, and I seriously do recommend that you Google it. It's a beautiful flare. The storm, not only was it beautiful, but it was so fast that the solar radiation itself was so intense that the impacts didn't just remain in space. The coronal mass ejection, or CME as we call it, traveled from the sun to Earth in a record-breaking 15 hours, and that's sort of compared to the more usual 2 to 3 days. And it still holds the record to this day. The United States experienced radio blackouts, significant power grid disturbances, satellite damage, and those as far south as Texas saw spectacular aurora. It also caused magnetic disturbances which triggered the accidental detonation of US naval sea mines from the Vietnam War. At that time, there was no way to really predict when a solar storm would begin to brew. Now, NASA is leading the United States to be a space weather-ready nation. And on Tuesday, NASA, alongside 27 national and international partners, will launch the Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe, as we lovingly refer to IMAP. IMAP is a mission of firsts. It will be the most advanced spacecraft dedicated to mapping the heliosphere's outer boundary, which is a key piece in the heliophysics puzzle about the sun's influence on our solar system. To do this, IMAP will spin every 15 seconds to measure the invisible plasma around it, and it will do that using a comprehensive suite of 10 revolutionary instruments. From its strategic position 1 million miles upstream from the Earth, IMAP will provide warnings, and they will be provided, of course, for Artemis 2 and Artemis 3 of incoming radiation. It will provide advance notice for astronauts and for those on Earth using the IMAP Active Link for Real-Time, or IALERT system. Radiation exposure is a real threat to our astronauts traveling to the moon and beyond. Humanity has only ever existed inside our protective magnetosphere, and as we travel beyond that protective shield, whether it be to the moon or to Mars, the actionable information from missions like IMAP will keep our astronauts safe. Through NASA's Moon to Mars program and NASA's Moon to Mars Space Weather Moon to Mars Space Weather Analysis Office. It's a big mouthful. We can implement the IALERT system for upcoming Artemis missions on our sort of lunar proving ground before we actually send humans to Mars, which is really, really significant. NASA science supports the agency's core exploration safety imperatives by enabling research and instrumentation relevant to ensuring that astronauts can protect themselves in time when we know a space weather event is coming. Riding alongside IMAP is a mission of opportunity, NASA's Carruthers Geocorona Observatory, and it totally complements IMAP's data by helping us to understand the space weather near Earth and how it impacts a sort of very little studied atmospheric region called the exosphere. The exosphere is basically our last frontier before you hit deep space. The only time we've been able to image it before was using a camera that flew on the Apollo 16 mission, and that's the best image we have to date. With Carruthers, we'll be able to stare constantly and look at how this very, very final barrier between outer space and us actually responds to space weather. So it's a really, really great partnership. The exosphere's response to space weather shapes how the storms actually impact our technology, including communication signals in the upper atmosphere and power lines on the ground. Now you're going to hear a lot more about IMAP, about Carruthers, and about NOAA's SWIFO L1 mission from Brad and from Irene, and then again, as Daryl said, during the science briefing. So I will end with a thought that today the Apollo-era flare serves as a reminder of the threat that radiation exposure has to technology and to astronauts in space. The safety of the environment in which our astronauts, our robotic explorers, and the infrastructure that will be deployed is critically dependent on dynamic space weather conditions which affect us daily here on Earth. But at obviously much safer and much lower levels for us here on Earth than out of the moon. As the United States prepares to send humans back to the moon and onward to Mars with the Artemis program, NASA science is actively providing the ultimate interplanetary survival guide to help support humanity's epic journey along the way. IMAP, Carruthers, and NOAA's SWIFO L1 build upon our fleet of missions studying the sun, including Parker Solar Probe, and soon we will add ESCAPADE, which launches later this fall. All of these missions together support and enhance the existing space weather prediction capabilities in coordination with NOAA throughout our solar system in near real time for the benefit of all. So I want to say thank you to our mission partners, to SpaceX, and most importantly to the IMAP, Carruthers, and SWIFO L1 teams. Go NASA, go NOAA, go Falcon.